Hello and thanks for joining me. It's winter here in the UK. It's pretty cold today actually, and I'm out riding my Harley-Davidson Dyna Fat Bob. You don't see too many Harley-Davidsons out on the roads in the UK in winter, and for very good reason. The roads here are salted when it freezes in the winter, and that salt gets into all of the nooks and crannies in your bike, and it can cause awful corrosion if you're not careful, if you don't wash it out carefully and frequently. And so if you spent 20,000, and that is that Harley-Davidsons are becoming less and less a bike that you would ride for every day, for your everyday rider, and they are more and more a Sunday toy for RUBS. What's a RUB? If you're not familiar with that acronym, it stands for Rich Urban Bikers, sometimes also called Rolex bikers. And so what I'm looking at is the direction in which Harley-Davidson seem to be heading in with their new business strategy under their new CEO. So I think most people know that Harley-Davidson's sales peaked 15 years ago, and since then they've just year on year they've dropped off. They've dropped off by a huge 40%, and as a result there's a new CEO being appointed who's put together a new strategy, and that's a strategy of cutting costs and refocusing the products. Now, under that strategy, the Dyna range and the old Sportster range have been cut, certainly here in the UK. And now I understand why that is the case, and that is because Harley-Davidson are developing new engines that they need to develop to be compliant with up-to-date emission controls, and those new engines won't fit in the frames of these older models of bikes. They won't fit in the Dyna frame and the Sportster frame. So yeah, that's fair enough. However, the impact seems to be that what Harley-Davidson are doing is dropping the blue-collar models. That's to say, they are dropping the bikes that have been traditionally the workhorse bikes of your working man. If you look at the new range of Harley-Davidson bikes, they are frightfully expensive. The new electric live wire costs $30,000, and other models go up in price up to, well, if you look at, say, the top-end CVO electric glides, you're talking $45,000, and the Tri-Glide, the trike is $50,000. Harley-Davidsons are very expensive machines, and the business strategy of Harley-Davidson is to push the prices up even further in 2022, 2023. So this new Harley-Davidson strategy, the 5-year business strategy, which we're calling the Hardwire strategy, is taking Harley-Davidson even further away from its core customer base and establishing Harley-Davidsons as the Sunday toys of RUBS, these rich urban bikers. Now, if you look back at the history of Harley-Davidson, and particularly, I've spoken about this in other videos, post World War II, when there was a lot of surplus ex-army bikes, they were a cheap form of transport for young men who were rebelling against the buttoned-up social norms of the late 40s and early 1950s. But now, most Harley-Davidson riders are old men. If you look at the demographics, the typical average Harley rider is a middle-income, middle-aged man in a professional job. They reckon that the average income of a Harley rider is around about $90,000, and that figure was taken a few years ago, so it's probably even higher now. And the average rider is in their late 50s. So these days, to buy a Harley-Davidson, you need to be on quite a high income. And the product has become a very carefully packaged commodity. And again, I refer you to the other video I did about Harley-Davidson and the illusion of freedom. These days, you don't buy a motorcycle. You buy into a carefully constructed image, a carefully constructed lifestyle image. If you read the Harley-Davidson Hardwire 5-year strategic plan, and it was published in 2021, you can see it easily, it's there on the internet. It contains some very interesting highlights. For example, one of the key strategic aims is to broaden the view of who customers are to include non-riders. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because it reflects the fact that Harley-Davidson are selling an image, not a motorcycle. So they're just as interested in the wannabe who buys t-shirts and the other clothing products as they are in actually selling bikes. And so it reflects how Harley-Davidson are moving away from what has always been their traditional core customer base. What Harley-Davidson are selling increasingly involves selling clothing to these non-riders, and in fact the wording used by Harley-Davidson in this business plan, the Hardwire business plan, is Harley-Davidson is a, and I quote, global lifestyle brand. I'll just say that again. Harley-Davidson is a global life. Let's be perfectly clear. Harley-Davidson is a commercial organization, very heavily entrenched in the American capitalist system, and their main aim is to make profits for the shareholders. That's why they've brought in a new shareholder who has a background, nothing to do with motorcycles. He used to sell shoes, but very successfully. And it's interesting, isn't it? Used to sell clothing, and Harley-Davidson are pushing the clothing side. Right? So it doesn't really matter what products earn these profits for Harley-Davidson or who are buying them, as long as Harley-Davidson is generating the profits. So it's blatantly obvious that this task of reviving Harley-Davidson and increasing its profitability is not constrained by a need to preserve the core Harley-Davidson culture, or to preserve the lifestyle and culture of traditional Harley riders. The future of Harley-Davidson lies with RUBS, rich urban bikers, not the hardcore riders. Thanks for listening.